Hello everyone, I'm Captain Courageous, and welcome to my channel RPG Retro Reviews, where I review old school modules and games and try to give them a fun and informative analysis. Today I thought I'd do something a little bit different and answer a frequent question that comes up in the comments section all the time, and that is, what is my favorite OSR RPG? Well, today I'm going to answer that question and why, but first a real quick channel announcement. I am extremely happy to announce the official launch of my Teespring store, Ye Old School Shop. I've engaged the talents of fantasy artists James V. West and Phil Stone to create these wonderful art pieces that encourage the viewer to game on. Another great way to help support the channel and get some great swag to bring to your gaming table, from your official gaming t-shirt to a bag to carry your game stuff, or just a mug to hold the brew of your choice while you slay orcs and dragons. Check out yeoldschoolshop.com. Patrons to the channel receive a 15% discount on all merchandise. The checkout code is in your Patreon messages. Links to my Teespring store, Ye Old School Shop, and purchase links are below the description. What other old school style images would you like to see? Please let me know in the comments below. Your idea might just show up in the shop. Alright, with that bit of business out of the way, let's begin. My foray into the old school revival, or Renaissance, began in the dark days of 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Until that time, like many, I had been playing 3rd edition, but it was clear by that time that there were some serious issues with bloat and complexity that, for me personally, I wasn't really that much into. Many went on to Pathfinder, but that version of the game never really appealed to me either, since I was already dissatisfied with 3rd edition. Sorry, Pathfinder fans. We did try 4th edition for about 6 months, but I quickly burned out on it, and it was then when I got into Castles and Crusades, which the gaming group loved, and it absolutely is a phenomenal game. It's an interesting blend of 3rd edition D&D, but with all the skills and feats removed, and then an infusion of 1st and 2nd edition in regards to spells and monster presentation, with its own unique task resolution system called the Siege Engine. I've done several videos on that game when I first started this channel. It's a fun blend of modern mechanics and old school style gameplay. It was around this time that I discovered the OSR community, and that there were a lot of different ways to feed that nostalgic desire for something more akin to the early days of the hobby. It was at that point that I really began exploring the various OSR games, and in the last 5 years, due to the channel, I've had the opportunity to review and play quite a few of them, and in general, I find that they fall into 3 main camps. There are those that emulate the original little brown booklets or white box D&D like Swords and Wizardry. There's a lot of love for the original Holmes Basic version of Dungeons & Dragons, sometimes referred to as the Blue Box Set, which was the first reorganization of the little brown booklet rules, and that led to the creation of the Blue Home rules. There are those that emulate the Moldvay Cook edition of Basic D&D, or BX, Basic and Expert, like Labyrinth Lord and Old School Essentials, and those that emulate the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 1st edition game like Osric, Advanced Labyrinth Lord, and Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea, and for Gold and Glory, which is actually a 2nd edition retro clone. In addition to all of that, certain OSRs are faithful recreations of the original source material, just restated or better organized, such as Old School Essentials, which adheres completely to Moldvay Cook Basic, or they are based on the original source material, or in the style of, as they say, but have minor tweaks and homebrew alterations, such as Advanced Labyrinth Lord, Swords and Wizardry, and Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea, and interesting fusions like Dark Dungeons. Dark Dungeons is an amusing case, as it gets its origin and title from a Chick tract, which was a religious comic written by Jack Chick, a fundamentalist Christian illustrator who wrote an infamous comic intended to warn the reader of the evils of Dungeons and Dragons during the satanic panic of the 1980s. Amusingly, I remember going to a game convention in the mid-80s, and someone in all seriousness, handing me one of these pamphlets to warn me about the evils of D&D. So with all of these choices, a lot of players are understandably confused as to exactly which OSR should they try, which is the best. Quite frankly, the answer to that question is going to be more complex and different for any group of folks you talk to due to tastes and style preferences. But more importantly, why even play an OSR game when the original rules are now freely available on print, on demand, or even play a more modern rules set? That's a good question, and one that I can answer. Afterwards, I'd like to talk about my own personal preference and why. Certainly for many, nostalgia plays a big factor in returning to the classic rule sets. However, if you look at the original Little Brown booklets, they are a mess of organization and lack clarity. However, Swords and Wizardry did a phenomenal job of organizing, tweaking, and restating that rule set, and is quite popular. I did a review of Swords and Wizardry a few years ago, and if you're wanting to look at a game that explores Dungeons & Dragons in its original form, you might want to check it out. The point here is that retro clones have an advantage over older rule sets in regards to organization and a retrospective look at 40 years of actual gameplay, and can tweak and modify the rules to make play that much easier, faster, smoother, and clarify ambiguous rules and essentially add in the errata. Certainly in the case of Swords and Wizardry, you'd want to use that rules book over the invaluable original D&D rules at the game table. Another reason people enjoy playing a retro clone is its delicious lack of codification for many rules. Frequently there are no skills for the player characters. The Game Master has a lot of leeway when it comes to task resolution and can tailor things to fit the group and the situation at hand. A role-playing game is not a war game. In my opinion, an RPG is more fun when the referee has some flexibility to come up with things on the fly. This style of play isn't for everyone, of course, and newer game masters can be a little intimidated by the sheer volume of choices such play offers. In comparison to newer rule sets, older editions of Dungeons & Dragons are easier to play. Less codification of the rules means less things to remember. The solution to many problems in the game aren't solved by a magical spell or some special character class ability on the character sheet, but is found in the player's imagination. But why specifically play an OSR like Labyrinth Lord or Swords and Wizardry when you can simply get the original rules at Drive-Thru RPG in a PDF or print on demand? Although earlier rule sets were a lot of fun, the organization in earlier editions left a lot to be desired. An OSR clone can take 40 years of gameplay into account and reorganize that into a more playable form. The Old School Essentials rule set is a prime example of such reorganization taken to the logical extreme, with highlights in the rules bullet pointed for easy reference. Old School play also has a greater focus on resource management, keeping track of torches, food, spells, and the encumbrance of the characters. To many players, this is just another challenge to be overcome and can be a lot of fun. Old School play is grittier and more dangerous. In OSR games, character death is more prevalent. The characters definitely break easier. They aren't superheroes, just very talented and special individuals who may have a potential for greatness. It is this ever-present threat of death at any moment that is especially exhilarating, and the long-term survival of a character can be a source of pride and satisfaction to a player, and that is part of the challenge the game offers. Lastly, a retro clone with its newer, more modern presentation and organization makes it the ideal vehicle for introducing this style of play to newer players of the game who may be curious or just looking for an alternative to modern iterations of D&D. But I'll put that question to you, my viewers. What aspects of old school play are interesting or fun for you? Did I miss anything? Please leave a comment about the aspects of old school RPGs that you find enjoyable. For me personally, the grittier, more dangerous aspects of older editions that call back to the game's pulp fantasy origins, Conan the Barbarian, Favorite the Grey Mouser, Call the Conqueror, the Tales of Hyperborea by Clark Ashton Smith, and the soul-crushing mythos of H.P. Lovecraft. These are the kinds of stories I'm interested in telling. The OSR offers an opportunity to customize the familiar tried-and-true rules of Dungeons & Dragons, tweaking them to fit a specific setting. TSR did this themselves several times over the years, with such settings as Dark Sun in the world of Athos and the D&D Gazetteers in the world of Mystara setting. However, it was several commenters on this very channel that turned me onto what has quickly turned into my personal favorite OSR game and obsession. The designer's tweaks to the standard AD&D First Edition rules made to fit to the setting, the intriguing and flexible player character options with a massive number of character classes, as well as infusing the setting itself with the mythologies of Robert E. Howard, Clark Ashton Smith, H.P. Lovecraft, as well as real-world Greek myths. Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea really ticks off all the pulp fantasy blocks for me. I've already done a very detailed look at this rule set in another video, which I'll link above, but Jeffrey Talanian's tweaks of the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons rules are simply phenomenal. For me, it's like someone took everything I love about OSR play, the pulp fantasy genre, and put them into a single role-playing game. I was predisposed to love this game. It's low fantasy, but high concept. For player options, there are no less than 7 fighter subclasses and 5 magic user, cleric, and thief subclasses for a total of 26 classes to choose from. The game slyly avoids multiclassing, but includes classes that have elements from other classes within. For example, the Warlock is a warrior with access to magic. Furthermore, that magic can be either the generic style of the magician, or they can choose to specialize in either cryomancy, pyromancy, or necromancy. And magic is wonderfully pulp with the aforementioned types, cryomancer, necromancer, and pyromancer, specializing in cold, fire, and death. There are also illusionists as well as witches, all ticking off those pulp fantasy boxes. There are no dwarves, halfling, elves, dragonborn, or anything else to speak of other than humans, though there are a very interesting variety of such, called directly from the works of mythology and the writings of Robert E. Howard and Clark Ashton Smith. For example, there are the Atlanteans, amphibious humans tracing back to antediluvian Atlantis of old Earth. They have oily, greenish-tinted skin, webbed hands and feet, the scattered remnants of a displaced race of people. There are Amazons, Celts, Chimerians, Vikings, and more. But it's the gonzo world of Hyperborea that is the star of the show, from its wild hexagonal planar shape and infusion of Lovecraft, Howard, and Ashton Smith mythology that makes it exciting. The most powerful bastions of civilizations are small island strongholds and massive city-states such as the Chromarium. Leave the safety of the walls of these protected city-states and face the onslaught of a dangerous land where wild beasts and magical creatures dwell, ever seeking sustenance in this barren land to satisfy the ache in their hungry bellies. Even the seasons of the world are weird, bizarre, and dangerous, going in 13-year cycles, with some years having only nominal amounts of daylight and long winters. Even in summer, however, the sun never reaches a zenith in the sky, giving it a mystical hue of pinks and oranges. The night sky is even more bizarre still, with strange moons, including the planet Saturn with its weird ring system. And there is the pantheon of gods that pulls directly from the Greek mythos, with gods like Apollo, Helios, and Artemis, but also a heavy dose of Lovecraft with Azathoth, Cthulhu, Yig, and so on. This is a raw, dangerous setting where death is an ever-present companion, and horrors await around every hillside. Only the hardy have a chance to survive here. This is a world of high adventure. These rules booklets are also packed with some of the most haunting and action-packed fusion of 70s Marvel, Conan the Barbarian, and old-school D&D artwork you'll see anywhere. To say that it is lushly illustrated is an understatement. If I've piqued your interest in this setting, please check out my full review video, where I go into a lot more detail. Getting a hard copy of this game can prove to be a little bit challenging right now as it's out of print. The 622-page tome with the full rules and the gazetteer for the world of Hyperborea is sold out and eBay prices are expensive. However, the 290-page player's manuals, which are simply the rules of the game and player creation, with the monster section of the Hyperborean gazetteer removed, are still available. However, normally these sell for $39.99 on Northwind Adventures website, but Jeffrey Talanian has been very generous in his offering channel subscribers an exclusive $10 off coupon. Just go to www.hyperborea.tv and enter CAPTASTONISH, that's Captain Astonish, essentially, at the time of checkout and get $10 off the web store price. In addition, you'll get a free map of Hyperborea. All is not lost, however, as next month, in June 2021, Jeffrey Talanian is kicking off another Kickstarter for the 3rd edition printing of the game. Of course, you can look to this channel for all the latest news and updates for this awesome OSR game. But that's my favorite OSR game and why. What I'm curious about is, what do you enjoy playing and why? What does OSR play offer you that modern games do not? Or if you've never played an old school D&D style game, what is it that got you curious enough to look into them? Please let us know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found this video informative, useful, and fun. Next week, I'm going to return to the Lost City to review Goodman Games' Classic Adventures Reincarnated version. And after that, I'm going to delve into a fantastic and amazing, fairly new virtual tabletop called Vorpalboard. As usual, I'd like to give a big shout out to all of my wonderful patrons. Your continued support makes these videos possible. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, please check out my other videos on old school modules and games, and help support the channel by giving it a like, comment, and share. Check out my Teespring store, Ye Old School Shop. Follow me on Twitter and join the channel's Facebook page, Dungeons & Dragons RPG Reviews. Consider supporting the channel and more content like this by becoming a patron yourself. Or alternatively, you can just leave a tip in my PayPal tip jar. Links for everything is in the description. And as always, my friends, may your D20 roll true and game on.